So we're going to do a lot at the beginning of the year here with vocabulary and knowing what things mean. And it is going to be a little bit of writing. So if you're actually more of an English person than a math person, this is going to appeal to you. Like if you like words more than numbers. If you like numbers more than words, I'm really sorry. I'll get you through it though. All right. So an expression is numbers and variables grouped together, but there's not an equal sign. And when I say variable, what do I mean? Like what is a variable? X, Y, Q, A, B, C, D, any of those, they're letters that stand for numbers. They take the place of a number. But an expression means there's not an equal sign. It's just like a jumble of letters and numbers, but there's not an equals. Do you know what we call it when we put the equal sign in it?
Equation.
An equation, good.
I remember this.
So a large part of what we're going to do, especially here in the beginning of the year, is like review of Math 8. So you should remember a good bit of it, but we're going to go over all of it. So we're going to write words that these symbols would stand for. It's kind of like, you know how, like, I don't know what language you take, but if you take Spanish or French or Latin or whatever you're taking, where they say translate it from Latin to English or from English to Latin. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like we're translating from math symbols into words. So it's translate. So this means addition. There's going to be a few words that I mean, there's a lot of things that it could stand for. Or plus something else. It can also mean that you have a sum. If I say the sum of two numbers, what I mean is that we're adding them. Have you heard that word before? Sum. Should have heard most of them. More than. So if you have more than what you started with, you added. And also increased by. And I'll also just go ahead and say now, because it's the beginning of the year, my handwriting is very loopy and it's like half cursive and half printing. So if you ever can't read something, please just tell me and I'll tell you what it says. I'm not offended by that at all. So I want to see if you can tell me what these ones would be, since I told you the first ones. So instead of addition, this would be subtraction. Good.
Minus.
Good. And then instead of plus, it would be minus. Now hold on a second, because you know everyone writes at different speeds. Instead of sum, when you're subtracting, difference. Good. You can think of that as it's like the difference between two things. Like if I want the difference between two people's heights, like how much taller is someone than someone else, you would subtract them to get the difference. Right? Instead of more than, you would have less than what you started with. And instead of increased by, decreased by. Right? So it's translating symbols into English words is what we're doing. So the next one, you can either have the little X or just a dot, or honestly nothing at all. You know how if you put two numbers next to each other with parentheses, it means that you're multiplying. So this is multiplication. Do you know any other, before I just tell you, like instead of me just lecturing at you, do you know any other words that would you use for that? Like how you would say it? Times something else. What's that? Yeah, by like something by something. Like if you have a room that's like 10 by 12 feet, like you would multiply to get the area of it.
Square.
Oh, that's going to be on the other side. Just hold on to that for a second. But that is a type of multiplication. Oh, that's good. Hold on. We're going to do that when we flip the paper over. The last one is kind of going along with some difference. Do you know what that word is? Oh, good. Product. All right. And so this one, it can look like that with the two dots in the line, or you could just have a fraction bar. So the fraction bar means that as well. Fractions scare people but it is just one number divided by another number. That's all that it is. Okay, so this is division. And I guess you could also say divided by. That kind of sounds the same as division to me, but divided by. And then let me see if you know this one. For adding its sum, for subtracting its difference, for multiply its product. It's kind of,
Quotient.
oh, you know it. Great, quotient. We didn't even have to
Yeah.
play hangman once. Usually we have to play hangman when people don't know the word, but you guys knew them, so awesome. Quotient. You had very good teachers last year.
No, I thought so.
There will eventually be a word you don't know and we'll play hangman. All right, so this symbol means equal. What is what? So factors is like, do you remember when we were playing tax collector last time and we said the factors of 8 were 2 and 4? So those are numbers that would multiply to give you another number. That's, but you're not gonna see that word show up here. You guys are like advanced with your vocabulary, you're like ahead, which is good. That's not a bad thing. So equal or equivalent. Or actually, sometimes I just thought of this. Sometimes you can just see the word is. Like you'll see blah, blah, blah is something that means equal to. Like this is this. It would be that they're equal to each other. And then let's see if you know this one. There's really only one thing that goes with this, but do you know what those bars mean? Good, absolute value. Do you know what an absolute value does to a number? Like if I said absolute value of -4.
Oh, it turned it on.
Yeah, it makes it positive. It's a distance from 0, and a distance can't be negative. So that's why it turns everything positive. Okay, so it's just the distance away from something. Cool, are we good so far? Okay. So here's what you said on the other side about squared. So squared in a symbol form will look like that. The 2 is smaller and it's a little bit above, it's an exponent. It is a type of multiplying though, and let's just review. If you have 3 squared, what it means is 3 times 3, which would give you 9. For example, what is 5 squared? 25. It's 5 times 5. Okay. So when you do a square root, it looks like that. Have you seen a square root before, or is that a brand new thing? That might be a brand new thing.
No, I've seen it.
Or you've seen it. It means you're doing that backwards. They're inverses of each other. So what is the square root of 25? 5. Do you know some of them? Like what's the square root of 49?
7.
Oh, awesome. How far up can you go? Do you know the square root of 144?
12.
We're good. You guys are good. Okay. Cubed, instead of to the second power, is to the third power. So it would mean something times itself 3 times. So for example, when you do 3 squared, it's 3 times 3. If you did 3 cubed, it's 3 times 3 times 3. You do it an extra time. And the cube root looks the same as the square root, but you just stick a little 3 out front. Don't worry about actually doing that with numbers. If you had to, you would be able to use a calculator. For right now, you just need to know what the word means. Cubed means it's to the third. Cube root means it looks like a square root, but there's a little 3 out front.
Good plan.
You guys knew all the words. We didn't have to.
No,
We'll see what happens. I'm sure it'll happen eventually. All right, so now we're going to practice actually writing some of these in symbols. Sometimes the words will turn them around, like it will reverse what you're doing. So if you see less than, more than, or from, it's going to reverse it. For example, if you have 6 less than a number, it means you have your number and then 6 less than that. So it would be x minus 6. And I'm using x just because that's normally what we're familiar with. You could really use any letter of the alphabet that you want. But do you see how it turned it around? 6 less than a number is x minus 6. 5 more than 3 times a number. Well, let me take that away. Do you know how you would do 3 times a number? 3x, good. And if you want 5 more than that, plus 5, good. And then from is also going to reverse it. 8 subtracted from a number would be x minus 8. So it's just flipped around. All right, grouping words are going to put parentheses in there. If you see some difference or quantity, so some difference or quantity, that's going to put parentheses around it. So for example, it says twice the difference. So it means you want 2 times something in parentheses. And difference means subtraction. So it's the difference of a number and 2. So difference means subtraction. It would be x minus 2. So when you see some difference or quantity, you're going to have to put parentheses. I call parentheses a hug. You just have to give it a hug. Those are tough. Let's try another one. 4 times the sum. So you're going to have 4 times something that's in parentheses. And sum means what? Addition. Good. So it's the sum of a number cubed and 1. So a number cubed would look like that. The x with the little 3. And then plus 1. So a number cubed and 1. So this one is 5 times the quantity. So it's going to be 5 times something in parentheses, a number plus 4. So what would we put in the parentheses? Yep, x plus 4. Cool. And then last one of these, twice the absolute value. So just instead of parentheses, you would put the absolute value bars. And inside of there, it says the sum, that means adding, a number and 5. So it would be x plus 5. So go ahead and flip over. So on this side of the paper, we're going to practice doing this both ways. I'm going to do all of the algebraic ones first because I think those are a little easier. And then we'll go and write them in words because that involves actually writing like a statement. I think that's a little bit harder. So let's do this column first. 8 less than a number squared. So it's going to reverse it. You're going to have your number squared, should be x squared. And then you want 8 less than that. So you would have to put minus 8. So 8 less than a number squared. All right, so again, I'm going to do this first column. So go down to the next blank. 4 more than, so we're going to have something plus 4. The quotient. Ooh, what did quotient mean? Dividing. Okay, so you can either put that little division symbol or you can just put a fraction bar, which is usually what I'll put. Quotient of square root of x and 9. So the way that's going to look is like that. A quotient is, you could write division instead, but I like the fraction bar. I think it's a little easier. So quotient of square root of x and 9. And then we want 4 more than that. So plus 4. That one was kind of complicated. There's a lot there. All right, so down to the next blank. The difference. Ooh, what did difference mean? Yep, subtract. Perfect. 2 times the number x, so that would be 2x minus 8. So difference of 2 times x and 8 equals, so put equals 13. And we're not solving that though, just leave it, like that's the answer. All right, so down to the next blank. 2 times the cube root of a number. So it would be 2 times cube root. It looks like a square root, but it just has that little 3 out front to show that it's a cube root. So 2 times cube root of a number. And then what? I'm going to start asking you because I want you guys to start reading it and seeing what comes next. We did the 2 times cube root of a number plus 4 equals 16. Good. The is means equals. So equals 16. Perfect. All right. And then last one in this column. square root of a number, so that would look like that, square root of x. And then just -4. So that was going from words, like the verbal statement, into symbols. Now, when we do the other column, in my opinion, I think this is a little tougher because you have to write words, but like easy and difficult is always an opinion, because like what's easy for someone might be hard for someone else and vice versa. Okay, but we're going to write these out in words. So instead of x, they used m. That's fine. You just have to say a number. There should be no symbols in here at all, like only words. Okay. So 2m, that would be 2 times a number. 2 times a number. And then what would I put to put the next part in a verbal statement?
+5.
+5, perfect. So no symbols, it should all be words, like alphabet letters. Like you're writing a statement. Kind words only, even to yourself. That's what you got in eraser. All right, so for this one, it would be 1/3 times, now it's not just a number, it's a number squared. Good, perfect. 1/3 times a number squared and then that takes care of that first part. And then what would be next?
-7.
Yeah, -7. So all words, no symbols. I think that's harder. I don't know. I feel like it's harder to go that direction. For me anyway, because I'm a numbers person, not a words person. All right, so down to the next blank. This is not a number squared, it is a number cubed. Perfect. A number cubed takes care of that first part, so I'll cover that up, and then what? Yep, +4. Oops. Cool, 2 more. Oh, this one has parentheses. So you're gonna have to use a word like sum or difference. Are we gonna use sum or are we gonna use difference? Difference, good. So it is 3 times the difference. And that word gets the parentheses in there. So when you see the parentheses, it's either sum or difference. So I guess you could say quantity as well. I would usually go sum or difference. 3 times the difference of what? What have we got in the parentheses? A number and 5. Beautiful. Three times the difference of a number and 5. Now, there aren't any parentheses in this last one, but do you see how the whole thing is under the square root? So we're still going to need to use the word difference to get like the whole thing under there. So it's going to be square root of the difference square root of the difference of what? A number and 4. Yeah, good. And you can say minus. You can just say a number and 4 or a number -4. We already said difference, so the minus is kind of in there, but I mean, I would accept it either way, obviously.
Square root of a number -4.
So here is what the problem with that is.